Hello everybody, PooperDog111 here, and in this video I want to tell you a lot of tips and how you can farm on MapleStory. I'm sure a lot of you have realized that this game is really just a bunch of grinding. Like all this link skill nonsense and Legion garbage at the start of the game. Eventually you reach a point where it hits you. Wow, I have to do hundreds, potentially thousands of hours of grinding. How am I going to grind? So that's what this video is for. I'm going to teach you how to set yourself up to grind, what to do while grinding, how to kill maps properly, and get the optimal kill rates and loot the mesos properly, all that kind of stuff. It'll all be in this video, so just one all-encompassing video on how to farm and how to essentially progress in this game better, because the biggest way to progress is to farm and to kill monsters. So if this video helps you out, definitely subscribe and come to the Twitch channel because it helps me out so much. Also, leave a comment so I know how this video helped you out, and I appreciate all feedback. You can also join the Discord where you could post video suggestions or ask for help about anything about the game. But with that all being said, let's begin. So the first thing that you need to know about farming is you need to set yourself up to farm properly. So what does that mean? So there are all these different systems in the game that give you different amounts of damage, right? Like for example, Legion gives you damage for bossing if you set it up to give you damage for bossing, right? But you could also set it up to give you damage for farming, and that goes the same for hyper stats. That's the same for your inner ability, all these things. So you want to set yourself up to get the optimal amount of damage for farming and get the optimal amount of rates for farming as well by getting meso and drop gear. So if you don't know what meso drop gear is, I have a whole video about it linked below. And the reason why it's so important is because it increases the amount of money you get from training and the amount of loot that you get from killing the mobs as well. So meso drop gear is accessories on this game. Accessories meaning your rings, your pendants, your face, your eye, and your earring. You can roll specifically item drop rate on them and meso obtain plus 20%, and then that'll give you increased chance of getting loot from the mobs because you have more drop rate, and more mesos because you have more meso obtain percent. So in the end, you want your drop gear to have equipment item 200% when you hover over it, and then meso obtain equipment item 100% when you hover over it. That's how you know you got the finished meso drop gear on this game. Now obviously most people, you're not going to be able to get 200 drop gear right away, so you want to start with just one line of each. I have a bunch of double lines like this, for example, that have either double drop or meso and drop. But when you're new to farming, you want to just have single lines, so like one line of drop or one line of meso. It caps out at 5 lines of meso and 10 lines of drop, so keep that in mind. It's not like you can have 8 lines of meso and 8 lines of drop. The 8 lines of meso, 3 of the lines wouldn't do anything, so it caps out at 5 lines of meso, 10 lines of drop. But when you're first starting to make meso drop gear, you just want 5 lines of meso and either 3 or 4 lines of drop, because that's super simple. And then you slowly work towards getting 200 drop gear by getting double lines. And again, I have a video linked on this entire process down below. Real quick guys, I want to tell you about the channel's sponsor, Zenless Zone Zero. This is an action RPG game made by MiHoYo, the same developers that made Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail. To be completely honest with you guys, I always ask my community on stream if I should take a sponsorship, and when they heard I got one from Zenless Zone Zero, it was genuinely so shocking how much they wanted me to take it. I played this game myself, and unironically it was fun. This is coming from someone who played pretty much only MapleStory for the last 6 years plus. The character designs are sick, and the combat is actually really fun and flashy. Each character has unique moves and combos and ultimate abilities. I pulled this one character called Miyabi, and the chat exploded saying how lucky I was. So many people love the game in the chat, and you could try it yourself by downloading it with the link in the description. Full transparency as always guys, the deeper you get into the game, the more it supports me. I always want to keep it real with you guys, and I'm super grateful to be here. I only take sponsors that I personally myself enjoy. So if you want to check it out and consider supporting me, again, click the link in the description and download Zenless Zone Zero. Thanks, and let's get back to the video. Once you have your meso drop gear set up, you also want to have a setup for training. So for me, I have meso top line and drop middle line. So this will just further increase the amount of mesos I get and further increase the amount of drops I get from my inner ability. So now we have a pretty good meso obtain and a pretty good item drop rate percent. You can get more drop rate by having a familiar that gives you some. Different familiars give you different amounts. Like for example, this one is a small amount, so if I were to summon it, it would give me an additional 30% drop rate. But there are familiars that could give you up to 100% drop rate. It's called a large drop fam. But to be honest with you, the main thing that matters is your gear that gives you meso drop gear and your inner ability, because at the end of the day, long term, you probably won't be able to keep up your familiar the entire time because it has a limited usage. So now that we've optimized our character to get a higher amount of mesos and drop from the mobs, let's optimize it towards damage, right? Because at the end of the day, when you switch to your meso drop gear, you're losing out on a bunch of stat lines, you're losing out on a bunch of good gear. Like if I switch to my damage gear, I'm at 65 mil, but if I switch to my training gear, I'm at 39 mil, so I lost a lot of damage. But we can optimize our damage to be for mobbing better. So for example, on your hyperstats, this is more of like a bossing hyperstat page. Yours doesn't have to look exactly like mine, it's kind of class dependent, but the gist of it is for training, you want to put into normal damage, regular damage, and crit damage. Of course, you want to be at 100% crit rate though, so if you need a little bit into the crit rate, you can do that, but these are like the main three: normal damage, damage, and crit damage. And then anything left over, you want to put into XP. I put into attack because I wasn't really worried about XP at the time. I was just training this character for another reason, but you would want to put the rest into XP. It's more important to one-shot than it is to amplify how much XP you have. So let's say you put your hyperstats into XP, but now you're not one-shotting. That's troll. Like you want to make sure that you're one-shotting first, and then anything left over you put into XP. So this will increase your mobbing damage a lot if you do your hyperstats towards it. It's also the same thing for link skills. Link skills, you can make a page for bossing, and then you can make a page for training. Let's make a page for training together. So if you need 100% crit rate, definitely use the crit rate link skills like Phantom link skill, but since Nightler already has over 100%, I'm not going to need it. Super important is Ho Young link. It gives you a lot of damage for your first mob target. Combo Blessing, so this is the one for Iran. It gives you more XP, but to be honest with you, the most important thing is one-shotting. So if you're already one-shotting, then this is fine. For me, I know that I'm going to be one-shotting, so I'm going to put it on, but keep in mind that this is not necessary if you don't one-shot. If you don't one-shot, then you want to get more damage. But since I know I one-shot, then I'll put it on for the bonus damage. Elementalism gives you a little bit more for just regular damage in general. This is a Kana's link skill. Mercedes is super important. It gives you more XP. Judgment, which is Kinesis link, gives you crit damage. Nature's Friend, which is Lara's link, it gives you specifically damage for mobbing, which is really important. Rune Persistence, which is Evan's link, it gives you extra rune duration so that you get even more XP. Solace, which is the Arc link, gives you more damage the more that you're attacking. Tide of Battle, so this gives you damage just from moving around, and obviously you're going to be moving around when you train. This is from Ilium. Now, long term, you might not actually even need this because sometimes certain classes, like they just stand still the entire time when they train. So keep that in mind. You might have to adjust your links later. Unfair Advantage, so this is good if you're training at a map that you're higher level, like let's say you're +1 level on the mob, or you're the same level as the mob, you can get bonus damage. And then Wild Rage, which is really good from Demon Avenger, gives you more damage. So I would say like these are like the main link skills for training. And then you could also put on like Innate Gift, which gives you 5% damage, or Hybrid Logic, which is another like 10% stat. That's what I would do, something like this for training links, and then you would get a lot more damage just from that. Another thing that will help you train is having Holy Symbol. You definitely want to have Holy Symbol, gives you more XP and more drop rate. Now the next thing is the Legion page. Now you obviously might not have as much Legion as me, but here's the gist of it. At the end of the day, there are two ways of doing your Legion page, right? There's your bossing one and your training one. So for the training one, you want to start putting blocks towards normal damage and crit damage. If you have any extra blocks, you put them towards XP, but normal damage and crit damage are the most important ones. Because like I mentioned before, one-shotting is more important than amplifying how much XP you get. So now you can see that, sure, we lost a bunch of combat power, like in my damage gear was much higher, but now we are so much more optimized when we train, and we're going to get way more resources. If you're level 260 or higher, you will unlock Soul Janus eventually, which is very, very important. If you don't know what Soul Janus does, long story short, it helps you train. It makes it so much easier. Not only do you get passive XP percent from it, so leveling it up gives you more and more XP percent. There's also two modes to Janus. So if I were to press the skill, there's Dawn on the left and Dusk on the right. So Dusk automatically hits mobs in a huge area around you, and then Dawn allows you to put down like a summon, and this summon will just kill a bunch of mobs in that area for you for a certain amount of time. So level 1, it lasts for like a minute, but as you level up the skill more and more, you'll be able to put down more balls and they last even longer. But generally, when you're using Soul Janus at level 1, Dusk is probably better, because it's better than just one ball. So I know it's a lot. I know there was a lot that we went through, but it is very, very important to help you maximize the amount of gains you could get from training. The next thing that we have to do is we have to pick a map. So there's this website called maplemaps.net, which I will have linked below. And you can use this website to figure out what maps are good and how to plan out your training rotation. So for example, if we go back to Cernium, right? Back to world map and we press Cernium, and then this is the area that I want to train in. Let's say I want to train in this map. If you hover over it, it'll say cap/gen 33, meaning that there are 33 mobs per spawn wave. But if we go over this one, it's 37. So there are 37 mobs per spawn wave. Generally, the higher mob count maps are better because they give you more loot per hour and more XP per hour because there are more monsters, right? So if you're full clearing this map that's 37 and you're full clearing this one that's 33, the 37 will give you a lot more. Something that's very, very important on this game once you're level 260 or higher, really. Obviously, it still matters below 260, but I would say it really, really matters starting at 260 and onward is you want to train at mobs that are either the same level as you or +1 level or -1 level as you. So for example, my Night Lord is level 262. So I want to train at maps that have level 261 mobs or level 262 mobs or level 263 mobs. So there's a thing on this game called EXP level advantage, right? So if you are +0 or +1 level of the mob or is -0 and -1 level, you will get +20% bonus XP. And this is something called final EXP, which means that this is a multiplier. So every single thing that you do will be times 1.2 if you are within this level range. So it is significantly faster if you are training within the level range. If you're training within +2 to +4 or -2 to +4 or -2 to -4, it's only 10%. And then it just gets worse and worse and worse as the level gap between you and the mobs gets further and further and further. So you always want to stay within what's called level range, which is +0 or +1 -1, because you'll get 20% more XP. So now that we know that, we want to pick a map that has level 261, 262, or 263 mobs because I'm level 262. So we don't want to train any of these maps. We could go here, but I'm just going to choose this map, right? So it brings out what the map layout is, and then you can press rotation helper, and you can use this to try and plan out how you're going to use your hitboxes. So for example, for me, I'm on my Night Lord. The reason why I'm on my Night Lord is because other classes like Hydo, I feel like have really OP mobbing. So I want to choose a class that's like kind of in the middle so that it's more realistic. So we have Night Lord Showdown, right? Which is like this skill, and you can see exactly how big the hitbox is and where I'm going to stand. So I'm probably going to stand towards the bottom and jump around, right? So I know that this entire bottom part is going to be cleared just from me jumping around. And then you also can see how big Soul Janus is. Soul Janus is massive. So as I jump around, right, the Soul Janus procs are going to be hitting the mobs up there. And I won't have to worry about a lot of them, but I will still have to worry about some of them. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to use Dark Flare, which is like a summon that Night Lord has. And I'm probably going to place it somewhere so that it can hit multiple platforms, like over here or something, so that this quadrant is good. And then I also have Urda Fountain, which I can also use to just like place over here or something, and then it'll kill the mobs. So now all I have to do is just jump back and forth, and then I could kill most of the map. And there's still going to be a little bit over here, but that's fine. I could use skills like Death Star or whatever on cooldown or Sudden Raid to hit these monsters. So this helps you a lot when you're thinking about your training rotation or how big your hitboxes are. Another way of trying to figure out how you can mob in a map is by simply looking up somebody training in that map. So for example, I looked up Night Lord Cernium rotation, right? So a lot of these videos are going to be not for reboot. So you want to find a video that is for your server. If it's for non-reboot, then that's fine if you play non-reboot. But if it is for reboot, then you want to find out what works for you. So for example, this guy made a video on like Night Lord Granite's training rotations from Cernium to Odium. You could also join the Night Lord Discord if you're a Night Lord or whatever class Discord you have and see where maps that they recommend. So let's try it. Let's go to this map and let's see if we're one-shotting. So we're one-shotting and you can see that Soul Janus is proccing too, right? And the mobs up here are dying just because of Soul Janus. Like I wasn't even up here. I didn't even place any of my summons down, right? But yeah, I'm still able to train and kill all the monsters. And if I were to place down Dark Flare, for example, like I said, you can see that it's constantly ticking and hitting the monsters. And if I were to place down Urda Shower, this would also help me mob as well. And then all I would have to do is just rotate back and forth. Now, you must be thinking, what about all the loot? Like, what about all the loot on floor? How are you gonna pick up everything? Because clearly my character doesn't have a vac pet, right? So since I don't have a vac pet, how am I gonna loot everything? So there are a few different solutions to this, right? First of all, if vac pet is available, you can buy a vac pet. Obviously, it's super expensive. It's still super expensive. I don't care how good the item is. It is very good. Like if there's a single thing that you would want to spend money on in this game, it is VacPet. It makes your trading so much better. If you don't know what it does, it just sucks up all the items around you and you don't have to worry about looting it really. So if it's available, like right now as I'm making this video, it is available, right? But for most of the year, it's not available. So what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to constantly rotate the map very frequently to loot the items. Now, this is annoying, right? And different maps have different amount of platforms, but it is possible and it is able to be done. Another thing that can make it a lot easier for you is you might have to just sacrifice a few of the mob counts and go to a map that has easier looting. Like for example, this map, like I mentioned before, it has less mobs, but at the end of the day, it's easier to loot. So it might actually be better for you in terms of like rates and gains because it's a smaller map and it's just easier to loot in general. Stuff on the floor expires after 2 minutes and 10 seconds. So you have quite a bit of time to loot stuff. You can use a skill that has like a 90-second cooldown or like a 1 minute cooldown to go loot every like 1 minute or every 90 seconds so that you know that you're getting everything and none of it is expiring. One of the best things that you could do when you loot is place down a summon. So if your class is a summon, like Dark Lord's Omen, for example, you can use that to go loot while you know that the other side is still being killed and you won't lose out on pretty much any rates. Did anyone peep that I got like 3 frags just in this training demonstration? So now that we know how to optimize our character for farming, like we know how to put on Mesa drop gear, how to one-shot, Legion, blah, 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 blah. We know how to loot as well. I want to talk about tips on how to farm for a longer amount of time. Now, not everybody has all the time in the world to farm. Of course not, right? But if you do happen to have time for farming, then I want to share some tips on how you can farm for longer periods of time. Because I get asked all the time when I'm streaming, how am I able to farm for like 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours in a row? Like, how am I able to just do that without losing my mind, right? And the advice that I give is always the same. I never think about farming, right? Like when I farm, I'm not thinking about farming. I'm not thinking about, I need to kill this mob. I need to loot this part, blah, 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 blah. I make the process as brain dead as possible because I already know how to farm. Like I already know, I'm used to it. I'll give you a perfect example. Let's say you're a chef and you're at like a very busy restaurant and you work every single day. At the end of your shift and you like want to clean up the pots, pans, or knives or whatever you're using, you're probably not actively thinking about exactly how to clean everything. It's probably like kind of automatic in your head because you've been doing it for so long. You do it every single day, stuff like that. It's exactly the same for farming because you do it very often and you've done it for a very long time. You don't really think about it anymore. It just becomes kind of like muscle memory and then your mind goes elsewhere. So that's how I'm able to farm for such long periods of time. It's because I'm not actively thinking about farming. I've personally found that the people that always ask me about how I'm able to farm for a long time are people that are kind of new to the game. That's not to diss anyone that's new to the game at all, because I was the same way a long time ago as well when I didn't know how to farm. I was wondering how people were able to farm for so long. So now I want to give some tips on what to do while farming to help make the process easier for yourself, right? So everybody has different things that they like to do while they farm. But the first thing that I would ask yourself is, what is it that you like to do besides farming, right? Like, do you like playing other games? If you're somebody that plays like, I don't know, Valorant or League of Legends, it's probably going to be pretty hard to do that while farming because at the end of the day, you need your hands on the keyboard to farm, right? So there's only so many things that you could do efficiently unless you play Demon Slayer, but that's a whole different point. So what I like to do for me is I stream, right? Like I stream almost every single day. Pull up to the Twitch, by the way, shameless plug. And just streaming and talking to my chat all the time and talking to the community, that's what helps me keep going because I'm not thinking about the farming. I'm just thinking about what to talk about. And we just talk about random shit the whole day. But before I started streaming, there were 2 things that I would always do while farming. I would be watching a show. So I'd always be watching some sort of show. Like I remember me and my friends back in the day, we would watch like The Office, for example, on Netflix. Or we would watch anime or something. Like we would be watching something as we farmed. That way we weren't really like 100% paying attention to the farming and we were still like watching something. So I would highly recommend probably watching something. Maybe you could put on a podcast or like somebody's stream or something that's like not too super engaging. You know what I mean? Like you don't necessarily want to watch something that's like gonna take all of your effort to understand. Like you don't want to watch like, I don't know, some like super theoretical like Veritasium or like Vsauce video. I mean, you could. I'm kind of just like saying what I watch when when I farm, but like you kind of just want stuff that you don't have to like 100% pay attention to, because you still need to put like a little bit of effort in how to farm, right? But at the end of the day, you can watch whatever you want. Some people, they just like to listen to music. Like that's enough for them to sustain farming, is they just listen to music. But one of the things that I also like to do is I like to play different games when I farm, but not like big games. Like I mentioned, like League of Legends or Valorant. I don't know how to describe it, like a big game. Like I wouldn't play like Elden Ring while I farm or something like that. You would like to play these like kind of like mobile games. That's the best way I could describe it. So many people play this game and they play Teamfight Tactics, like TFT. They play that game alongside of them farming. Or so many people play this game and they'll play like a card game at the same time. So for me, I've recently started playing Hearthstone while I play this game. And I found that like it's actually so good because you get like into the other game and then you don't even realize that time is just flying by. Sometimes you forget to pop coupons because of like how much you're distracted by the other game, but you have to like remember to pop your coupons. So yeah, find a game that you're able to do while you're farming that doesn't take away from your rates, or find something that you could do while you're farming. Like maybe you want to talk to your friends, or maybe you're like shopping or something. Like sometimes it's just like open Amazon or something and just like look at stuff. Like you just want to look at something else besides your game. Essentially, that's the whole point of this. So that's what I do. That's what I do to optimize my character for training with hyper stats, inner ability, gear, all that stuff, Legion. That's what I do to full clear maps, is I look at something like Maple maps and try to prepare my rotation. And then for looting, that's what I would do as well. I never had a vac pet all my life. Like I had to forcibly learn how to loot at some point. And then eventually I got a vac pet and it became a lot easier. And then that's what I do while farming, is I stream, or if I'm not streaming, then I'll be playing Hearthstone or some other game or watching videos. So if this video helped you out, obviously let me know. I appreciate all the comments and feedback and everything like that. Make sure to subscribe and come to the Twitch channel, because that helps me out so much. You can go to the Discord as well, which is also linked below, because it'll help you out. There's so many people that are going through the same thing you're going through, trust me. And also I be replying there, and many other people be replying there too. If you have any questions, of course, leave a comment. With that all being said though, have a wonderful day and thank you for watching. Thank you so much to my members: Blazefire, Shooms, Shagad, Ravi Espa, Koga, Piconir, Skittles, Dante Victory, CK, J, Blunt Poppy Supreme Oil Backwards, Vampiric X, Fresh and Juicy, Assassin, and Migu. I appreciate you guys so much, and shout out to everyone who submitted fan art. If you always want to submit fan art, it's in the Discord linked below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.